Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Live with Roger Hanson. I'm Roger Hanson, and I am here with a special guest. This is someone that I've been wanting to interview for about a couple months now. She was on the wonderful World of Weirdness. Her name is Summer Todd, and her story was pretty amazing from what I heard of the first one. She's done 3 interviews with Wonderful World of Weirdness. One of them was with her son. I avoided watching those because I wanted to do this interview with her and I didn't want to influence the questions and how she answered them. So I just watched the first one and left it at that. I don't want to get too much into that. I really want to get into the interview and let Summer Todd introduce herself to everybody. So with that, I want to welcome you to the show, Summer. Before we get into the interview, though, I was wondering if maybe you could give a little bit of a background about yourself, and stuff like that, so that everybody who's listening will have a chance to get to know you a little bit more.
Sure. I call myself Summer Todd. That's really my middle name. But my name's Janine Todd. But that Summer kind of has stuck with people that know me real well. So that's what I kind of call myself right now. I'm from Southwest Ohio. I was born in Hamilton, Ohio, and have lived in this area all my life. I'm 63 now, so I worked at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and retired from there. I have 2 kids, and I'm just kind of a country girl. I was raised in right outside of Oxford on a small farm, and then I ended up getting married and moving with my husband to a big old farmhouse, which is what a lot of my stories revolve around. So that's just a little background about me.
Okay. It's good that you mentioned that because, first I want to go through some of the stuff that you discussed with John in your interview and kind of get a second take of it. But from what I heard from that interview and everything, I kind of have my own observation of it. And after we go through the questions and let you tell your part about it, is it okay if maybe we discuss like my observation and what I see from it, and then maybe you could kind of have some give you some feedback, and then you tell me what you think about it and if it makes any sense? Would that be fun? Okay.
That'd be great.
Because I did hear some good stuff in your story, and I just like to share it, but I want to wait until after you say your story again for the stream and for me, so that I can kind of get the story straight. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Now.
That's great.
Okay, that's cool. So now that we've gotten through all the preliminaries, I guess. Now, when it comes to your story, there's just certain parts that I do want to discuss because I think those are the most profound out of it. Okay. And
okay.
The first one that I wanted to talk about was how your mother saw spirits years ago. Now your daughter has dreams. Now your son is into spiritualism. Okay.
Okay.
Your mother, you said she's seen a spirit dressed like in Victorian cloth, and that was at the Oxford College. Is that correct?
The university, yeah. And as you know, universities are always haunted. It seems like. I know Miami University was too. So yeah.
Now, could you kind of give us a little bit of a background, a little bit of a story about that situation? Tell us kind of what all took place that she told you.
Yeah, well, my mother, I mean, she wasn't like, she had her issues and she was always kind of harsh and things, but and not really open to stuff. It like that. It didn't seem like, but she came home one day and was pretty freaked out, and she was really open about this. She just said that um, she had to go in about 5:30. I think they set up the salad bar and get out. They had a food line, so the cooks set up everything there, and then she was in charge of the salad bar, getting stuff ready for that in the dining area, and she just walked out there about 5:30. Of course, there's no students in there, and she was setting up the salad bar, and she turned around and there was this girl, and they have the dish line, where the students would take their trays and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked over and she said she was there biggest day, and she said she knew like nobody dresses like that, because I believe that happened probably in the mid 60s, maybe 70s, early 70s. And she looked like anyone else, like a student, but she was dressed in this weird period clothing. And she said as quickly as she looked, the girl was gone. And she told that story until she passed away. And it was really something that impacted her. I know. So that basically was a little, just that's all that happened. But
now, did she get too descriptive, or was she too descriptive about like the attire, or was it? I know you said it was Victorian and everything, but
she said it was a long black dress.
Okay.
And then I think she said she had like not like a cape or something, maybe something long sleeved or something on the top, but something like that. Okay. So there wasn't really again showing down. Maybe it was so fast, but yeah, it was just a lot of she was thinking like an old Victorian dress or something.
Now,
where they used to wear the dresses where you just didn't wear short sleeves. They came down to your wrist,
Yeah. Now, there was a time period that this college suffered increasing debts, is how they said it, and eventually something took place where the Oxford College was merged with Miami University. Is that the same college that we're talking about right there?
Yes. Okay. Yes, that's it. And then, I think what was going on is the women's college was open though. And so they had Oxford College, I think it was part of the women's college. I know there was Peabody, and that was all women. Mm-hmm. But I think Oxford College may have been for women. So there might have been a few students left there. But everybody pretty basically gone, and things weren't going very well financially then.
Now, it says that in 1928, the Oxford Female College building was sold, and it later became a sanitarium, and then a Miami University residence hall at Fisher Hall. Now, were you aware that one time that it was a sanitarium?
No, see, because that one I'm talking about, I think that might be a different building. They call it the Oxford Community Center now.
Yeah.
But it's still there. Now, Fisher Hall was the one that was a sanitarium. Fisher Hall was over on the other side of campus. Mm-hmm. And that was, but that wasn't the dining hall she was in. She was on the, it was called Oxford College. Now, I don't know what it was called back in the day, though. Back in, it may not have even been part of the university at that time. I think they may have acquired that later. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, the Fisher Hall, though, that was where that Ron Taman, there's a man that disappeared there, I think in the 40s or something, a student, and they've never found him. They never found him. It's a big mystery. It was on Unsolved Mysteries and everything. Did you ever see that? I'm sure you have. If you look it up, it comes up. But
Now, I don't know for sure if I've heard of it or not. I could have. I can check it up later because
Yeah.
that right there is good stuff right there because
Yeah, his name's Ron Taman, and he was in his room. I think it was over a spring break, so there weren't a lot of kids around, and he'd been studying, and this was kind of weird. He went and asked somebody in the area. I guess they had like people, the custodials there, and said there was a fish in his bed, and he needed new sheets. So this lady gives him new sheets. He goes, and then nobody ever saw him after that. He disappeared. His roommate came home. It looked like the guy had been studying. There was a radio on. His car, I believe, was still there. Somebody around 7 Mile, which is about 25 minutes away, maybe, said that he knocked on their door and was asking to go to a bus station or something. But they really don't know if that was him. And they've never ever found his body or anything. So that's the big mystery at Miami University there.
Now, it goes on further. It says the original Oxford Female Institution building was used by the college from the 1880s until its closure in 1828, when Miami University converted it into a residence hall. And
okay.
So with what you're saying right there about the fish in the bed, I'm wondering if maybe he was in that residence hall.
Yeah, I think that was Fisher Hall was a residence hall as well. Yeah, and then Fisher Hall was a sanitarium for a while because there's a place, there's a little building. It's off of a place called Cook Field. It's it's a really old, and they have some offices there. And they said there's a tunnel that goes underneath the ground over to Fisher Hall, so the doctor could go over there. I guess I don't know why, but back in the day, I guess they did that. So that's an interesting thing.
Now, do they have? It says that it still stands today, and it's being used as a community art center.
Well, now see, that's what's weird because I don't know. Are they merged? Because the community arts center is Ox College, and that's on the other side of town, and it is still standing. Now Fisher Hall, they closed it and they tore it down. The one that where Ron Taman disappeared, I think they tore that down, and it sat empty for years and years, and I would have to say it was probably around 89 or something. They eventually destroyed Fisher Hall because I worked in a dining hall right up the street from it, and it was kind of creepy. But yeah, they use the old chapel of Fisher Hall on Markham Conference Center now.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of history there. But yeah, I don't know. Like, sometimes if you read things, people get things confused. But yeah,
that's what I'm thinking too. Like,
yeah, they do, because Fisher Hall is separate now. Like Ox College, the Miami University sold it, and now it's a community center. So yeah, and they use it for like weddings and things. And then there's another old building too up there, is Peabody Hall, and that's also, it's on Western campus. So yeah, Fisher Hall and Peabody were both on Western. Then Fisher's gone. They tore it down and built another, like I said, Markham Conference Center's now where it was.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I brought that up was I thought that might be interesting information that maybe you'd want to know, because I checked into the old Oxford College and came up with it, and that was pretty interesting. And then when you said she was dressed in Victorian clothes, I was thinking that maybe it would be a good idea to get from you if your mother possibly, was a little bit more descriptive about it, because what stuck out to me was the sanitarium. There's a lot of incidents that take place in sanitariums which would cause something paranormal to happen, so.
Yeah, but like where she was at now, that is Oxford Community College, they eventually, I don't know if the university might have owned it a while after they it wasn't a residence hall, but they used it as an arts center.
Hmm.
And everybody that I talked to, like custodials or anybody on campus, they were afraid of that building.
Yeah.
They were like, we don't even like to go in there and work in that building. There's just something about it. And then this is interesting, and I never followed up with it, but I talked to a lady that works there now with the Community Arts Center, and she told me, because I kind of told her what happened with my mother, and she was like, why don't you come up and talk to me? She said, we have a lot of ghost stories, and we even have I think they have something every month or something where people get together and kind of tell stories and stuff about it. So that place is still, but now it's not even part of the university. It's just part of Oxford, Ohio. So yeah.
That's pretty good. I mean, that right there is, that's something right there to check into. I'd really love to learn more about that. So that's...
Yeah. I mean, I really didn't like working at the university with all the red tape and stuff, but the one thing I did love, especially about Oxford, Miami University, was the campus at the time was so pretty, and a lot of old historical buildings, a lot of history there. Now they've built and built and built. It's more like a resort up there at Miami, and Oxford itself. It's kind of sad, but when I was there,
they had to pretty it up though, because I mean, if you got a haunted college, you know what I mean? It's like...
Well, I don't know that it was actually known for that. It didn't seem like any of the kids cared. And actually, they love that kind of stuff, because where I grew up, right outside of Oxford, if you look this up too, you'll see it. They call it the Ghost Light. And it's been on a couple shows too. It's off of a road called Oxford Milford Road. And it's right inside town. And if you turn to the right, I used to live on Oxford Middletown Road. So, and when I was in high school, and the college kids do it too, you go down Oxford Milford Road, and there's a curve, and you turn your car around, and then you're supposed to flash your lights 3 times at night, and you see this light come to you. It's like, come over your car or come at you, but there's no traffic coming there. So you don't know where it comes from. So, of course, me living there and working at Miami, I did that, and there was a couple times that it happened where there's just this light. It just comes right at you, and then it's just gone. And I don't know if it's some kind of optical illusion from traffic up the road, but I mean, out there, especially back in the 60s and stuff, there's no traffic out there. Even nowadays, like you could go out there at 10 at night, there's no traffic out there. So I'm not sure it could be from a car coming down the road, way down the road.
No, those kind of sightings have been reported before. I've even heard of sightings like that occurring on the back of trains. They're very notorious. They happen a lot. You'd be amazed with the amount of times that people report that kind of paranormal activity. And just to let you know, I mean, it does happen. It does.
It's weird. And then there, of course, the police come out there a lot now because students, especially around Halloween, will go out there, and they were kind of bothering some of the people that lived up the road. But people still go to see it. But there's 2 urban legends about it. One is like there was a motorcyclist who was going to see his girlfriend, and he wrecked his bike, and he was beheaded or something. I don't know, but there's that legend. And then there's another one, like I think this one goes back to more the Victorian times, where they were in a horse and buggy, and they were killed, but it's a lantern. But I've seen it, and it's more like just a big light, probably it would be more like a motorcycle light or something like that. And you're in your car, and it comes right at you, and you're like, you think it's another car coming, but then it's not, because it's just a single light, and then it's just gone.
Yeah.
And it's real creepy. What that is.
Now, we also need to discuss another thing that I noticed, and this goes back to you and your husband's house when you guys moved in to this house. And according to you experienced. Well, no, first, actually, before we do that, let's talk about you experiencing doors opening and closing in your house and pulling up and they weren't there and stuff like that. Now,
that was with my that was a story about my sister. My sister had was renting a house and that happened. Now I had in a dream, which was weird. Like many years later, I had it happen in a dream in that Victorian house we lived in, the old farmhouse. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, could you give a little bit of background on that, because that's something that stood out to me that I think is a good thing to discuss right there.
Okay, so do you want to hear about the dream I had or what happened with my sister?
You just go ahead and
I'll tell you
say it all. Say it all.
Right. Okay, so my sister rented a house up in Oxford. Of course, she worked at the Miami too, because that's around that time. A lot of people work there. Because it's a rural area, so there's wasn't a lot of places to work. So she came home and from this house that she rented, which was haunted, at least when she lived there. Mm-hmm. But she came home, just comes into the kitchen. You just come right into the kitchen, and all the cupboard doors were open, and all the chairs were pulled out at the kitchen table, and she knew nobody had broken in because she had unlocked the door. It's the only way to get in. So she just sat outside and waited for her husband to come home. She was so scared. And I don't know, there's something around my sister. I don't talk to her much anymore. We're kind of falling out. But she, I didn't really recognize this. But now that you're telling me, is that maybe there is something in my family. She was one that had a lot of paranormal stuff going on around her and always did. But not necessarily really positive stuff.
Mm-hmm. See, John, he's more positive centered. All right. Now,
I am, yeah.
And for me, I'm kind of the guy who does research. You know what I mean? And I know that, like, I know how to like debunk stuff, and I know how to kind of read into people's stories and things like that. And there's stuff that sticks out to me and things like that. So when I do it, it's not really positive or negative. It's kind of like a neutral observation, because like you can see negative, you can see positive if you're in a neutral spot. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So for me, I understand what you're saying when it comes to her. You know what I mean? She might have been seeing things from the negative aspect. You know what I mean? She's seeing the bad stuff where you're seeing the positive, just like John sees the positive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when it comes to that.
Yeah, and she had some issues. I mean, and there were some bad things that happened to her in her life, and that she just didn't feel very good about. And this is something I really didn't mention in my other interview. Is she got angry about a lot of things, and I think she burnt a Bible in the driveway. Mm-hmm. And like, we weren't raised in a religious family, but she was just mad at God, I guess, because of all the bad things that have been going on. And she had some issues with having babies, and she's just had a really terrible time. So she did that, and I'm not sure if she did that before. I believe she did. After she did it, then this house was having all kinds of issues. Mm-hmm. So I believe she may have opened a portal or something. Now, I don't think she's like that now, but she was just having some issues. So, because you don't do that. I told her, I said, I don't care if we're religious or not. It's just not good. It's just like playing with the board, or even if you don't believe in it, don't do that. So that may have been what she did, is brought some things on. But
right.
Okay, so anyway, if you want me to tell you next is what happened with my dream.
Yes.
Okay. Well, was dreaming that I was in my kitchen, and this house we lived in, we had a beautiful kitchen because we tore the old kitchen down and we built a new kitchen, and I loved that kitchen. So, but anyways, down in the kitchen, and just it was like I was going to cook or something, and I was standing over by my stove doing everyday things, and I felt like something cold come over me, and I kind of looked around, and all the cupboard doors were open, and there was this presence there, and I was like, it was just evil, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then I think I woke up, and I was so glad I woke up because I didn't want to be in that dream.
Mm-hmm.
And my son had, he had said he's felt that presence before, but I feel like whatever it was almost in my dream. I've never felt like that. I mean, I have a couple times maybe, like the dream is so real, but I felt like it was in my dream. And then I think that was where a couple weeks later, my husband had a nightmare, and he felt it too, because he was telling me, and I said, it feels like that thing that was in my dream. Exactly. He said, it's like suffocatingly evil. I was like, yeah. So that was mine too. And, that was probably 20 years after my sister had her experience. So it didn't, that wasn't influencing my mind in any way. So
okay.
I have heard demonic stuff sometimes is like, it does that.
Now, that leads me into a question. It's not on the notes I took, but during that situation, did you ever come across any putrid odors, like maybe like a horrible stench of urine, cat urine, stuff like that?
No, I never did. And I don't believe my sister did either. No. Although my sister did have some things that happened in the house that were pretty demonic, it seemed like. But yeah, no.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
Sounds it's just something that I didn't put on the notes, but like with demonic possession and demonic influence, like there's a process. Like a demon can't just possess you. Okay, they got to go through like 3 different stages in order to do it. First,
you go on. I'm sorry.
First, they got to tempt you, then they've got to influence you, and then they go and they possess you. So, like, you go through different stages of demonic possession, basically, before you get there. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and maybe that's just was a test. And I also feel like, and you may have heard me talk about it in one of my interviews, and it might have been the one with Austin, my son, is I feel like Austin was something that kept things away from that house as he got older. He just didn't let them come in. But I also feel there may have been some spirits that were counteracting the evil spirits. I think there were various spirits in that house. But I always felt like there was something kind of protecting us.
No.
But yeah, I think it might have been something that was trying to come in, but it just wasn't going to do that there because we just didn't let it happen.
Now, jumping back though, I do remember in your interview though, you said in the house that you lived in with your mom and dad, you had experienced like hearing opening and closing doors.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that. I didn't even put the two together.
And then you talked about hearing cars pull up in your driveway, and then when you went to go check it, it was gone. There was nothing there.
Well, I forgot all about the doors, and but it was only that one incident, but it was so powerful and scary because even my dad was like scared. I mean, it happened like at 5:00 in the afternoon or so, or like around dinner, right after dinner time, so it was a little later.
Right. And he was in the bathroom, I think he said.
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to tell the story again,
yeah,
I can.
Go ahead. I'd love to hear it again.
So I don't know. We just had dinner, so it was probably about 6 o'clock. And my sister and my mom was sitting there having coffee. I think we always drink a little coffee too, but we were doing the dishes, and my dad, it was a little house, and so he was down the hallway in this little bathroom, and so it wasn't a big house. So then there's a little bedroom where my sister and I slept, and then there was my mom and dad's room to the left, and then there's a living room. So that's all that was down there. But they had these old cupboards or like closets that, they go halfway up, and you can hang your clothes and put your shoes and stuff. And then there's a flat board across, and there's two cupboards like up at the top where you can put boxes and things. Mm-hmm. And my dad might have built them because the house was so old when we moved in. I think he built them. So you got two little doors at the top, two doors at the bottom that just would, you could shut. So anyway, we're sitting there just chatting and doing whatever we do. And we just hear those doors opening and shutting. I mean, hard. Like, I don't even know if a person could do that quickly with that many doors. It's like all of them were doing it. That's what it sounded like. We couldn't see it. And my mom was like, Bob, what are you doing? And I was like, Mom, he's still in the bathroom, because you can see, you could have seen it out. And like, no, what is wrong? So he comes out, and it's still going on. My dad could hear it. And so they run around, they run back there, and then all of a sudden it just stopped, and there was nothing in their room that was out of place. It was so odd. And we didn't have big windows or anything in that room. The windows weren't open. There's nothing that could have done that. So I don't know if it was a repeat haunting or what, but it was pretty scary. To this day, I do not have any explanation for that. We had a dog, but it was a lab, and he was out there with us. So, it's not like we had critters in there or anything. Yeah. My mom kept her place she kept it really immaculate. So you go in there, it's not like stuff flying around or falling around, Yeah. And so it was very scary. And then the other thing that happened, and it happened to all my brothers and sisters and I, and then when my kids, my daughter and son go out there to stay with my mom, they'd stay in the living room and they'd hear it too. There was a window over by where we used to have the TV, and the driveway, there's a driveway out there, and they would hear a car. You'd hear a car come in the driveway. You could hear it crunching on the gravel. We always had gravel driveway. Mm-hmm. And then you'd hear doors shut, like somebody getting out of the car, but there'd be nobody there. The one thing that's interesting to me there is, and you may know this since you said you do a lot of research, mm-hmm. is anything around water. Well, there was an old well right outside the kitchen, right by that driveway, and we actually used it for water most of the time when I lived out there. And you could pump it and use it for flowers, but we also had it come into the house. Mm-hmm. So I always wondered if maybe it was that source of water or that well that maybe caused this repeat haunting there. I don't know how you feel about bodies of water or wells. I know they, maybe people just that kind of stuff up, but I don't know. That one.
Usually when people are bringing up water and wells, it usually has something to do with old pagan beliefs. So, okay.
So that might not do it.
It could be. It's either side of the coin. You know what I mean? Like it could be. It might be something there. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So don't discredit it. It could be like there's something like pagan going on with that situation.
Well, interestingly, is in the old farmhouse I lived in. When my husband and I moved there, we got our water out there in the country. We had a cistern, but there was an old well in our dining room, and it just the water was nasty and stuff. So we never really used it. And I think it was mostly covered up. But it was right there inside the house. So I always wondered about, like, is that have something to do with things coming in, or, because we had that well in that house, and it definitely was haunted. And the dining room in particular seemed to be where that well was.
I don't like bringing Hollywood up and stuff like that. Okay.
Right.
But
right.
Like, have you ever watched Tommy Knockers?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's been a while.
No, he didn't just come up with that idea on his own. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I wasn't even thinking about the Hollywood aspect. I just heard, like, even just not like wells, but like creeks or lakes, or what I mean.
Exactly.
I don't know that there's any validity to it. But I guess in my experiences, now that I look back on it, I think those both homes did have the wells right there. And like I said, mine was inside my home, and the other, because there was a crawl space basement in my house too. But and then with my mom and dad, there was that old well right outside their kitchen. Oh, yeah. Don't know if there's anything that, what do they say? Every time for every urban legend or something, there's some truth.
Yeah.
Is that what they say?
Yeah. There's always a little truth in every one of them. Like, you'll find something that does have like a real life experience that took place. If you just look hard enough, you'll find it.
Yeah, kind of like with aliens and stuff like that. I mean, you hear all these stories, and then there's all the big, like you said, Hollywood hype about that. But you don't have that many stories without a grain of truth there. So,
the stuff that Stephen King brought up on Tommy Knockers, it goes back all the way to H.P. Lovecraft, and he was big on talking about spirits and stuff like that in the woods, and aliens in the woods too. He was he was really into that. He all of his writings were fiction, but he did do research. You know what I'm saying? Like he researched his finding, or his what he wanted to make his stories out of. So.
Well, yeah, and I know that because actually it's really funny that you say that. There's an old town, and if you look this up, I swear, Roger, it's just like something out. I've always said this to my family and stuff. I said it's like a town out of a Stephen King movie, and that's what Austin, my son, said. He said, "Well, Mom, he researches that stuff, and that's where he gets it." And it's an old town in Eaton it's just like something out of one of his movies. It's all older buildings, and it's got that creepy feel, and yeah, it is Eaton. You go through there, and it's like Main Street. It is terrible. There's this old courthouse, but yeah, it's like something out of it, and it's like kind of, you just, as soon as you hit that area there, that town, it's like you go back in time. It's like you're back in just in the old country or something.
Yeah.
And really funny. And there's a lot of there's Amish and stuff around that area there too, and it's just got that old feel. So yeah, he does do a lot of research on his stuff, and it's right on it. It's right on it.
Okay, so before we get too much, because I do want to be able eventually be able to get you and your son together for an interview. That's why I've stayed away from the other interviews, so that it can be fresh. Okay. So to avoid getting too much into hearing much about his story at this point, I'd like to go on to another part of your story with John that I think is interesting too. We've covered your sister a little bit, but there was an incident that took place in you and your husband's house that consisted of your bedroom where you felt something strange there and she sensed it as well.
Um.
That there was
Oh.
something in
Oh,
your.
yeah. Okay, so this story goes back to we moved to the house. It was in September um, of what, 88. So we moved into the house, uh, and we stayed downstairs because, like I said, it was an old farmhouse. They didn't have the upstairs, like the heat wasn't vented up there. So we were going to do some remodeling. Of course, we were young, and we were going to do that stuff. So we were all living downstairs, and our bedroom was off of a hallway. There was a living area, and then the hallway that went to a bathroom, and then our bedroom. And I was pregnant with my daughter, and so my husband went to work one morning, and I went back to sleep. I was trying to go back to sleep, and sometimes he'd just mess with me, like he'd come up behind me and just stand there for a while or try to scare me sometimes. So anyway, I felt something watching me, and I thought he must have forgot something and came back in, and now he's just standing there and he's goofing around. He's looking around the doorway at me. That's what it felt like. And so I'm like, but then I got this feeling that it was not a good feeling, and I was like, I don't think he came back. I didn't hear the door, front door shut if he came back in. And so I kind of opened my eyes and there's nothing there. And I thought, I know he didn't come back. So I tried to go back to sleep, and eventually I did because I was just scared. I didn't want to get up. And so I probably did mention it to my husband. I definitely did that night, but he was like, no, I never came back. He said, I don't know what that was. So anyway, we didn't discuss it anymore. We were pretty busy, and we had Thanksgiving. So that we'd only been there a month or so, a couple months, and just eating and everything. And my sisters were like, my one sister said, I went to the bathroom, and it just feels like there's something weird in the hall there, right by your bedroom. And it just, my husband and I looked at each other and we're like, oh my goodness, because we hadn't said anything. And then I told her, I said, that's really strange you said that. And I kind of told her the story. So, and my sisters were twins. I had two sisters that were twins, and they were both there. But yeah. So that was, and then also in that room, when we did move upstairs, I was in the closet one day just getting clothes and stuff out there and taking them upstairs. So it's kind of like I was moving. I was taking a lot of stuff out of there. And I had my back to the door, the closet door, and I was in the closet. And I just felt, and it was some kind of creepy spirit. It would like come up on you. Like let's just say you're outside and somebody just runs up on you and you can feel it, They run up behind you. And so I could just feel it. And I was like, oh my God. And nobody was home that day. It was just me. And I think one of my kids, were very small then. And I was like, oh my goodness, it was so intense. It was like it came up behind me. It was like, what are you doing? Like really nosy, kind of thing. And so I kind of shrugged it off and got my stuff out of there. But I noticed any time I would do anything in that room that was like that, like maybe taking books out of the shelves, something major, it seemed like where I was moving out, I would get that feeling. And also, like we had a computer. We used that room as a computer area, kind of a library office area after we moved upstairs. And you would feel like something, my kids and my husband would always say they felt like someone was watching them when we were on a computer coming up behind you.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a spirit in that, and it was always messing with you in that room.
Now see, that was something that was important right there to hear too, because I know that your sisters felt something and you felt something, but what about your husband? Like, out of all of that, did he feel anything when it came to those weird feelings of being watched?
Um, I think, yeah, especially in that room that was our bedroom. Yeah, he would say it when he was on the computer. Um, he more or less felt things out in his shop. He built a shop there, and so the shop wasn't old. He built a shop to do some work in, and it was big, and it was a shop garage. And he basically would feel things out there more than any place. Of course, he worked out there a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
That makes
I
sense.
think he was as open to the paranormal as us and he was kind of a workaholic. But yeah, there was things that happened to him there. One time, we got a bunch of gravel brought into our driveway, and he was out there raking it and straightening it out and stuff. And he said that somebody called his name. They just said Marty, and he was like, there wasn't anybody there. It was in the middle of the afternoon. He said it scared him half to death. I said, I don't know. This house is haunted. There's something here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, he did feel things, and that makes a big difference right there for me, because that confirms that it wasn't just you and your sisters. Okay.
No, it was all my kids had experiences there.
Well, yeah, I mean your kids too.
And my husband, and then and this was weird too. If you want me to tell it.
Oh, go ahead.
My son, many adults really, not just kids, thought the house was haunted, because kids have an imagination, and it's a big old farmhouse. So
yeah.
But this was my son had his friend over, and his friend was named Cody, and Cody's mother was kind of she was a little different. She had the red hair. I guess they call it goth. I don't know. I liked her. She was very nice. But she had big tattoos on her chest, and she was kind of into the psychic stuff. So, but anyway, she comes to pick up Cody, and she's sitting in the car with her husband, and Cody was coming out, and I'm talking to her, and she looked right up at my daughter's bedroom, and she said, "There's something in that room, and that's not good." And I was like, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah.
And my daughter did have a lot of experiences in that room, and then I think in Austin, my son did too. That's where they kind of seen these black shadow things on. Yeah, so it was really strange. She said that.
No, this brings me into some situations that I heard you discuss about your daughter and your son. Now, you mentioned in the interview that your daughter has dreams now, like right now. Is that true? And like, how long has it been going on? You know what I mean? Is that's something that I really think that's important to discuss right there.
I believe she's always had the dreams, because I remember when she was a little girl, I bet you she wasn't even 4, maybe 5. We were going to like an amusement park, and she woke up that morning and she was all excited. We're getting ready, and she's like, "Mom, I had this dream about this little boy, and he was at the pool, and his nose was bleeding, and everybody was worried he fell and hit himself, and everybody was scared, and all these people were around him." And I said, "Oh, you just had a bad dream." I said, "You're excited about going." And it happened. It happened. We were all sitting there was a pool there, so we went there in the afternoon. And I was sitting there in the chair, and my kids were swimming, and all of a sudden the lifeguard's getting everybody out of the pool, and there's this little boy and all these people going around, and his nose was bleeding, and I guess he jumped in the pool and hit his nose and hit his head, so they wanted to make sure he was okay. I don't think he was hurt badly or anything. But then my little girl, should tell them, she was like, "Mommy, it's just like my dream." And I was like, "Oh my goodness." So she's very psychic, but she kind of fights it a lot, so she has issues with it. And then again, another dream when she was in college, she had was she woke up and she was eating breakfast with her friends. She was in a dining, in the dining area, and this girl came in with this really unique dress, polka dotted dress or something on. And it wasn't like something that was a common design. So she just thought it was a dream. And then she said she was in the eating lunch or breakfast with her friends, and the girl came in with the exact dress on. I said, Chantel, you do that. She even had a dream she thought had something to do with Sandy Hook or something, because she said, Mom, because I called her the day it happened, I think, or I don't know how old she was, but we had been discussing it or something. She was like, Mom, I had a dream where I was in the building and all these shots and guns were going off, and I was hiding, and it was just like I was there. So she fights it so much. I think if she would open herself up to it, she'd be full on psychic,
Yeah.
So she has some experiences, yeah.
Now, we come to your son, and like I said, with your interview, I mean, if you can, just don't give me too much information about your actual interview. Okay?
Oh, okay.
But there are some things that you mentioned about your son. First of all, now, from what I got from that interview, he is into spiritualism, but there was a situation that had occurred when he was younger where he mentions Archangel Michael, and you, according to what you said there, he to that point he had no religious upbringing and training of any kind. Like, is that true? Like, he mentioned Archangel Michael. And
and actually that was in our interview with John.
Exactly.
And I could tell the story where that came from.
Yeah.
So I had a car accident, which is kind of paranormal in itself too. I was going to work and I was late and wasn't being careful enough, and I pulled up out of this kind of a hill that comes out onto the highway, and there was a semi coming, and I pulled out basically in front of the semi like some kind of idiot. I was 22, but anyway, so I pulled up and out, and there he was. I mean, I looked and there he was. So I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna die. There's nothing, it happens so fast. And so he's coming at me, and I like ducked down in the seat with my arm over my head and went down in the seat, and then he hit me broadside, and I flipped back up and hit the steering wheel. It cracked just my arm. It cracked a bone, but it wasn't like it was just a break, like a crack. But that's basically all that happened. But anyway, he hits me, and the seat that I was sitting on went out the passenger door. The seat busted. It busted the seat off because he wrapped the car around the truck. Wrapped around the truck. So the seat went out the passenger side, and I'm on the seat. And so I'm just, when I got out of the wreck, I was standing in the street. So I stood up, and I really felt like I died, because when something like that happens, there's no way. How could I live? So I was standing there, and I felt like I was dead, and I was just watching over it. And then this guy comes running over that had lived down the street from me. He was behind me, and he was asking me if I was all right and stuff. And I was like, well, I must be alive. So, but anyway, I was telling him I was, and he went and called my husband at that time. That was back in the 80s, 82, I think. We didn't have cell phones, so there was actually a phone booth in this little village area there, and he went and called my husband and said, I think your wife's hurt. Not sure how bad, but it looks bad. The accident did. So anyway, so they get me and they take me away in the ambulance, and I just had some severe bruising on my left side. I busted my arm. Well, just cracked that bone by the elbow, which considering the accident, I should have been killed. But And then we found out too that the semi truck was carrying 20 tons of steel. It had a roll of steel on it.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
saw it. I mean, I saw it when I got out of the car, but I thought, well, that must not have been very heavy, or it would have just completely went over the car. Well, I found out later it was like 20 tons of steel, but the guy jackknifed the load. He jackknifed it. So he was a very experienced driver, and he busted he messed up his wrist. So they said he was in a hospital and had some issues, a lot more issues than me, it seemed like, because he drives.
Yeah. Now.
But anyway, back to okay. You want to ask me something?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'll wrap it up with that. So back to that. My husband went to the junkyard where my car was, and I wanted to get some stuff out of it. And he went, and I don't know why back then we just didn't take pictures of everything. We didn't have cell phones. I wish he'd taken a picture of it. But anyway, the car's all messed up, and he was getting stuff out of it, and he was looking at it. Mm-hmm. And he said that he was looking at how the seat had come out. Mm-hmm. And he said the belt. He said where the belt was, because I had my seatbelt on. He said he was wondering how I didn't get just cut in half, because if the belt holds you and the seat goes, well, what's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So, and he said the seat it didn't look like it was just torn off at the bolt, or the bolt came out. He said it looked like it was just sliced off. He said it must have been like when he hit my door and it wrapped the car around the front of the semi, maybe something sharp got in there and cut it off like that. But yeah. He said it was such a clean slice. So he always thought that was weird, and he said, yeah, he said it's like something cut that off right at the right time as that seat was going out. And so I forgot to mention to you when it happened, and I saw it, and I was going down in the seat, I felt, that's why I thought I was dead too, is I felt this presence come over me. It was like a warmth. And I don't know, some people say, oh, that's just trauma. But I swear there was somebody there, and she said to me, "It's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right." Mm-hmm. And I just relaxed then, and then next thing I know, I'm out of the car standing there, and I felt like that's why I felt like, well, I know I died because she was there. It just felt so light and warm, but it was only for a little bit, Mm-hmm. So I feel like I was a dumbass that day. I'm sorry, I don't know if I could say that, but I was. And my guardian angel had to come down and say, "Oh my God, what'd she do? We got to take care of this because she has more work to do." Is what I was feeling. So anyway, we would talk about the accident occasionally, but not a lot. I mean, by the time I had Austin, it was quite a few years later. I had him in '86. It happened in '82. I mean, so he was about maybe. By the time he's running around talking about stuff, maybe 4, and we were talking about it at Thanksgiving or something, and yeah. Austin was over and he's like, Mom, I think it was probably that Archangel Michael. And I'm like, Archangel Michael? What are you talking about, Austin? Yeah. He's like, well, he has that little sword, and he said he probably just went in and sliced that belt right at the right time, or, and I was like, what? And we're all looking at each other, and I'm like, we don't go to church. We don't read about the Archangel Michael. I don't even know how he knew about it.
Yeah, at the age of 4 especially. See.
Well, even me, I was like, Archangel Michael. I had to look it up. I was like, does that really what that angel does? And it was. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of a different kid, a little unique. I think if you believe in I never really thought about reincarnation, but if it does exist, he's probably a good example, maybe. So, yeah.
Now, it's completely up to you, but there's 2 minutes before an hour. If you want to go a little bit over, it's fine with me, because I don't have too many questions left, but I do have some other questions if you'd like to do it,
Okay, we can do that, yeah. And so, anyway, that was the story there about that. And yes, it did actually happen, so...
That was something that I really wanted to ask you, and there was some other things that you hit upon that I was going to ask you too, like the car accident and everything. Now, in your car accident, you said that it felt like it was an out-of-body experience during the accident.
I don't know if I would say that. I mean, like I said, I would say more. I just felt like a presence was there.
Yeah.
And then I heard that voice, and then people were like, "Well, did you hear?" I heard it in my head. It wasn't like, but that they were telling me it was going to be all right. And it was a she. I always say, because the voice was a woman's voice. So I would say more like I didn't feel an out-of-body experience. I felt a presence, and a very strong, warm presence. And that's why like I said, when I ended up, after it was all said and done, I was like, well, I know the angel, or I talked to an angel or something, and I'm gone. I'm dead. I'm just over here, just looking at everything. I'm out of my body looking at everything. That's how I felt there. But I know, I just think that was shock, right?
And you never know. You never know.
Well, I wasn't hurt that badly, though. I think, don't you have mostly out-of-body experiences? Don't you have to be hurt pretty bad? Although you are traumatized mentally.
There's people on the surgery table that's having out-of-body experiences. Literally in surgery and looking down on themselves being operated on.
Yeah, see, I always felt like that was with, like, if you were hurt really badly or, but in my case, I was standing there. I was very alive. I was banged up, traumatized mentally. I mean,
now
I could have had a short little out of body thing, maybe just from the trauma, but I just feel like I was just shocked. And I think also feeling that is why I felt like I had passed on.
And see, the feelings is what I'm catching into. Like when you spoke of the female presence, now let me kind of get that straight. Now you heard a female presence. You didn't see one, right? You just heard.
No, there's no way I could have, because I was in the accident. So I was like, I even remember when it was. I saw the truck, looked to my side and saw the truck. I put my hand over my head, my eyes, and I went down in the seat. It's just like a reflex, there's this truck coming, so I'm going over to my left, or to my right, with my left hand over my eyes, and I went down in the seat, and then he hit me, and the impact slammed me back, my arm back into the steering wheel, which broke my arm. And that was when I felt it. Right at that time. It was right at that time. So I couldn't have seen anything because I was right in the middle of all that.
Okay.
But I knew, I heard them say, because I said, "Oh my God," and I remembered saying that and doing that, and then I remember just feeling like, oh, her saying it's all right, everything's gonna be all right, and just like a light. So I don't know. Maybe that's something that people that have out of body experience. See,
you did just say you saw a light, right?
Well, no, I didn't see anything, like I said, because I was like in the middle of all that like reaction of the accident. So no, I felt it. I just felt like if you go out and you just feel like a sunny day and it's real sunny, you just a bright feeling, a warm feeling.
Yeah.
But I did not see anything. No, I didn't. I just.
Okay. Now, like your perception, like your perception right there. Okay. Now, are you telling me that everything was like bright in your sight? Like when you looked around, everything was lit up and real bright around you? Like a bright sunny day, overpowering sunlight kind of thing.
Oh, like when I felt that?
Yeah.
I would say it's more like when you walk up to a fireplace and you feel the warmth. I felt warm.
Okay.
Felt a light, like, because I was so terrified. I think it felt light, especially after I heard her say that to me. I was like, I just let it go. The fear. I was like, I just felt like I was going to be okay, and
Yeah.
you know, and I was. So
Sounds pretty good. I mean, that actually helps me out on a lot of the stuff that I was thinking. So, now,
and I remember talking, like listening to one of your interviews. Didn't you have an experience where you almost died, or you thought you did?
I had
Was
I had one. It was back when I was, I'd say, 13. 13. It was just before 13, actually, when we first moved to Arizona. It was, I almost drowned in a canal because even though my mom and dad told me not to ever go over there, you know how a 12-year-old kid is. He has to build a raft out of a tire and what do they call those, the oh god, the wood, the thing the planks, and a plank.
Yeah.
I tied it together. I was gonna get on that canal and right down it like friggin' hook fin, you know.
right.
But apparently I didn't have the experience to actually stand on something like that, so it slipped out from underneath me, and there I was stuck in this canal. And the way it's shaped on the sides, it's at an angle to where it's really, really hard to get up out of there if you're short. And
Yeah.
I was like maybe 5 foot back then. If I was like 5'4", 5'5",
Right.
and I couldn't barely freaking climb up it. I had to grab like a crack in the side of the cement and like grab each inch of it and just kind of barely scale myself up it. And by the time I got up there, well, the whole time I was thinking that I was dead. I was like, this is the end for me, you know.
And that's what I was talking about. I think that maybe that's part of the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember talking to John about that about your interview. I said he had the same feeling, one of the same feelings I had when I had my car wreck.
Mm-hmm.
I really related to that when you said that.
Now, right there, the best way I can explain that is, for me, those are moments of clarity. They're also spiritual experiences. You have epiphanies, okay? And they're usually triggered by some kind of incident. And like me and yours would be a near-death experience. You see what I mean? And a lot of people experience that, but the only thing is they forget it and they move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they're there. They're real. But your mind tries to shut it off and say that wasn't real, that was just feelings, blah blah blah, move on, you know.
Oh.
So
Okay.
I have a different opinion about the conscious and the subconscious than what a lot of people have. A lot of people don't believe the idea that your mind lies to yourself constantly, and you have to keep check on it, because if you allow it to continue, it'll lead you in a direction that's not positive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, and especially as a woman, I always have been told, listen to your intuitions.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Power. There's a book out there about it. It's called Power of Fear.
Mm-hmm.
And as women, we do it all the time. We'll talk ourselves out of something. Like maybe somebody seems off to us, and we'll say, oh, we're overreacting, because we've been told that a lot. Or we are in a dangerous situation, and we'll say, oh, we're just overreacting. We've been watching too many crime shows or something. But I listen to it always. Yeah.
That's good to hear, because well, let me finish up with these last questions before I start getting into that, because I just trust me, I'm glad that you're following up on your intuition. That's a good thing. Okay.
Yeah. and it's not just women, but I just don't think men are talked out of it quite as much because a lot of people act like women are hysterical sometimes, and maybe sometimes we are. I mean, so yeah, we're just face it, we're more emotional. So I think that's why we do that. We're like, oh, we're just overreacting. So okay.
Well, that brings me to a couple other questions because you also mentioned some stuff in there that kind of gets a little bit deeper, and that's what I really wanted to get into because this pertains basically to you in particular. Might include your kids, might include your sisters and your mom and everything, but more it's focused on you, okay?
Yeah.
So, right in your interview, you said that you could sense that somebody was watching you. You could also tell that something wasn't right and that people were going to die, and their aura, basically. You were mentioning that, but then
And what?
their aura, and you guys were
Happened a few times. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. Go on.
You guys were discussing that, and then you brought up a topic about a man who freaked you out when you was younger working on a job, and he just felt weird about you, and he ended up being or committing a triple homicide.
Yeah, and actually, you can look him up today. He's still in prison. He didn't get the death. He had the death penalty, but then they took it away. So now he's got life. Rhett Depew's his name. What?
Go ahead and if you want to, you don't have to, but just like the day that you seen him and like the feelings that you had when you was around him and he approached you and stuff. Could you share that with everybody and let us?
Sure. Now, I was really young then. I was probably about 18. I was working at a fast food restaurant, and he used to come in, this guy, Rhett Depew, he came in with a couple other workers from Miami University, because like I said, everybody around there almost worked there. Come in, they were on a trucking crew, and he was the sweetest guy. I mean, he was with the other two guys. They'd always cut up and stuff, but nothing out of the way, nothing bad. They just were fun, and they'd get their food and they'd cut up and all. And they always were joking with me and some of the other ladies. Girls. We were pretty much girls. And I never felt anything off about him. I really didn't. But I guess he was probably in his 30s. Like I said, I was 18 and I was married at the time. But I didn't feel like he liked me romantically, but I guess he was wanting to ask me out. So unbeknownst to me, this other lady that had waited on him, this other girl that I knew, he told her that he wanted her to tell me and ask me out, kind of thing. And she asked me, and I said, no, I've never ever. Why would I do that? First off, he knows I'm married. I got a wedding band on, and I said, I just, I don't think of him like that. He's older. So anyway, she did something. I don't know. He pulled up to the drive-thru, and I waited on him that day. And he wasn't with those other two guys that day. He was by himself. And I think he was pretty excited because he had me by myself kind of at the drive-thru there. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, did Robin talk to you about what I asked her? And I was like, yeah, but I'm sorry. I'm married and, and I was nice. I wasn't mean. And I swear, Roger, I mean, I remember it to this day. It's like, like you're sitting in a room and a cold breeze comes in. Mm-hmm. It's just like something in his eyes changed. And he just, and it was just maybe for only a few minutes. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but because I was so scared. And anyway, I got to give me his food, and he took off. And I told my friend, I said, don't ever even discuss me anymore. I said, he just come me out. So, I think after that, he still came in with the two guys. And usually when he'd come in with them, he seemed to have a different energy. It's kind of funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Scared of him. And maybe I always thought it's because he was with them, but he was always still kind of cutting up. Mm-hmm. So anyway, It's probably a couple years later, and I got the job at Miami, and then it was around Thanksgiving, and there was this triple homicide outside of Oxford. This woman and her daughters, and there's a baby in the house, and the baby, somebody took the baby outside, and then they had set the house on fire, so the baby was alive. And they couldn't figure out who it was, and they run around in this small town, and I guess they thought there was a woman involved because the baby wasn't left in that house, and I guess they did find a woman that was his girlfriend or something, and it was Rhett Depew. It was that guy that had done that to me. That house, he had lived there in the basement. I guess he was renting there, and he came back to get some stuff, and there was an altercation with the mother, and then he said that the girls were screaming, and it just triggered him, and he just went crazy.
Yeah.
But he came there with a knife. So anyway, he stabs I think it was a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old and the mother.
Oh
and the
God.
one, and this is even weirder too, because the man that was on the life squad was my boss at the time. He did volunteer work, and he said the little girl, the 7-year-old, that he said they had her on the car hood. She had so many stab wounds in her, but she was still alive, and they wrapped her up in sheets, and they were trying to stop the bleeding. And after that, a lot of the firemen and stuff on the scene had to go to the counseling, because in a small town like that, you don't have anything happen like that. So, yeah, and then they had this big trial, and like I said, he got the death penalty, but then they took that away, so now he's got life.
And you said the man worked for Miami College?
In Miami University, he worked at. He was working the physical facilities area where they maybe move furniture, I think, But
I do still find that kind of odd, though. I mean, because Miami University was affiliated at least with that Oxford College in some way, And,
yeah.
Like, a lot of the stuff you're talking about relates back to Miami University or the Oxford College. It just,
Well, yeah. I don't know at that time if Oxford College was still part of the university. I know he probably had been in that building. They take if they're on trucking, they take move offices and move furniture and things like that all day.
Mm-hmm. So far I've heard about a boy disappearing and a guy who worked there turning into a mass murderer. So
psychopath. Right.
I mean,
right.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, I came into this interview not expecting stuff like that, to be honest.
Well,
it's pretty
it's
good.
Interesting that you're talking about that, because the university itself, it has that feel like there's a lot of history. I always thought it was because there's a lot of history and it's older. It could be something to do with the land and the university's on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We moved when I was working in office. We moved from an older building, which we all loved, to a new building they had built, and the new building just had an odd energy. I never liked that building, and everybody else told me that.
That could also go back to the land, like I was talking about before, with like how you're talking about the water well.
Yeah.
And like there could be something with the land instead of the building. A lot of people who are into the paranormal get caught up in the building, and they don't realize that maybe it's the land underneath it.
I think it is the land underneath it very much, because it goes back to where my husband built the brand new shop, and at our old house. Mm-hmm. And that brand new shop was just as haunted as the rest of the house, and the house was older. So yeah, I think it is the land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, you also mentioned something too that I really wanted to cover. And this one, the triple homicide was interesting, don't get me wrong, but you also said something about a neighbor dying, and you actually thought of your neighbor dying before it had happened.
Oh, there were two incidents, and this is weird because it was like there was just a short period where I was like that because, like I said, my own husband passed away, and I didn't pick up on it. But this neighbor, we had an older neighbor at the time. We had just moved there, and he was so helpful and so sweet. He would always come down and like mow for us if we went on vacation, and he would just like. He'd come down with garden stuff. So this is where I'll tell about this. So a lot of times he'd on his way out of away from his house, go back to his house, going someplace, he'd bring us like tomatoes and corn and stuff. And so one day, it's in the afternoon, he pulled in the driveway and he said, "Here, I got a bag of corn and all this stuff." He was so sweet. I love that man. So he comes in. He's like, "Here, I brought this for you." And he's just standing by his car, getting ready to get back in his car, and he's talking to me. And I didn't know him real well, but I suppose he was about in his 50s then. And he was, looked like he was in pretty good shape. Didn't look like he was unhealthy. So I'm talking to him about something random, and this thought just came into my head is, he's going to die. And I was like, what in the world? Where did that come from? That's so weird. So I just kind of flipped that off, And so we talked and he left. And the next week, I think I was talking to this other neighbor. He wasn't so nice. He was always nosy and stuff. I didn't like him too well. But he was either talking to me or my husband because it's been so long ago. But he told us that the man, the one that brought me the corn and stuff, his name was Earl. He said, "Earl passed away. Did you guys know that?" And we were like, "No." And he's like, "Yeah, he was he was at the hospital because his wife was going to have a surgery on her knee. So he was in the hospital and he just like fell over as she was getting ready to go down for surgery. They whisked him down to emergency. Well, he had his aorta burst and they couldn't save him."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my God." And he's like, "Yeah, and it's so sudden, and he's young." And I was like, and it only been a week before that I had that feeling. Mm-hmm. So that freaked me out a lot. And then, what was the other one? Oh, there was another neighbor. He was sick with cancer, and I didn't know him. Like, we lived on this little back road. There was probably about 5 houses there. But you still weren't real close with some of your neighbors. You just know them, Mm-hmm. So I knew this guy, and he'd drive by and wave, and occasionally I think he talked to my husband, but not much. So, again, the nosy neighbor, the one I didn't like, he was always telling us stuff. So he tells my husband, he's like, "Yeah, that your next door neighbor there, he retired and he's pretty young." And he was so nosy. He said he didn't get health insurance though because he's so young, so I guess he's got a pretty good pension or something. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's all we knew and all we heard. We didn't care. And then the nosy neighbor told my husband, he said, bet he wishes he got that health care because he's got cancer. And I was like, gosh. And he told my husband a couple times. He said, "Yeah, that guy's cancer's pretty bad. He's got leukemia and blah blah blah." So time goes on, and I would see the guy with cancer. I'd wave at him. His name was Doug. I'd wave at him and stuff. But I never thought too much about him. I didn't know him. Mm-hmm. As time went on, I got to thinking, he must have got better because it'd been over 6 months. It might have been a year. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, well, he's probably getting better, but I never thought about him much. You're busy. And one night I got up, go to the bathroom or something, and it just hit me. I thought, that Doug guy's dead. He's just dead. It was just like this stupid thought, like comes in out of nowhere, mm-hmm. kind of like a matter-of-fact thought. Oh, well, that's silly. So anyway, go back to sleep. Here we go. A couple days later again, the old nosy neighbor stopped to talk to my husband because he's got to tell everybody everything.
Mm-hmm.
Told me that guy, he told my husband that he had passed away from the cancer. And it was the very night that I had that feeling.
Now see, right there, I don't know if you realize that you do that, because like when you woke up, you said you had the thought, and then like right there you said feeling. You see what I mean? So that's very important to understand if it was a thought or a feeling or both.
Well, I would say it's both. You get the thought comes in your head, and then the feeling, I don't know, it comes together a little bit. And then you have a tendency to do is maybe dismiss it as who knows, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe psychics and stuff have an ability to recognize it and go a little further with it. I've never felt like I was psychic or anything. There's something I've been doing lately, and it's really strong in the last couple months. And I've done it before, but it just kind of comes and goes. And I don't know if you've ever done this. I'll mention somebody, like I mentioned somebody to my boyfriend and we work together. I mentioned this guy, and this guy is retired and lives out of town. So my boyfriend goes out to lunch with his old buddies, and he said, "You'll never believe who I saw." And I was like, "Who?" And he's like, "The guy we were just talking about." And I was like, "You're kidding! What was he doing up there in Oxford?" And he's like, "I don't know," but he said, "I saw him at lunch." And like the other night, I think I was playing cards with some people, and I mentioned Snoop Dogg, and it wasn't 2 minutes that there was a commercial with him on. But it's so freaky because I've been doing it so much. I'll mention somebody, it'll just be a random topic, that something from the 80s, and then you'll see it on all of a sudden I'll see a commercial. It's just weird. I don't know why I'm doing that. Something's opened something up, or or I'm just feeling more stuff.
Well, we're getting pretty close to the end of my questions, and
okay.
I'll talk a little bit about that with you, because I do have, like, even in this interview, it kind of opened up a couple things to me. So, but we can talk about it because it's actually a lot more interesting than what I thought it was. So,
okay.
But you were talking about that, and with me right now, I try to stay away from like showing too much of my experiences on that, and John kind of gets nervous about that. You know what I mean? So, but there's a reason why I do that.
People are skeptics.
Well, it's not really being a skeptic. It's if you want somebody to be valid, then it's best that they don't really know what's going on with you. So, like, say if I give somebody who's claiming to be a person who can tell the future or read into somebody's life, if I tell them something about myself, then that kind of influences them, and it gives them information that they can actually use, to kind of come up with a bad story, you know what I'm saying? Or it could also influence their way of determining something. Like when paranormal researchers go out to do their research, when they go there, if they have something that happens, they don't go to another person and tell them what happened. They just want them to go and look at it too, without knowing what the first person saw.
Yeah, so it doesn't influence their readings. Yes.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's kind of the reason why I don't do that, So I can actually, like it's good to tell people your story. Don't get me wrong, you know. But
Right.
like when you're actually doing research and stuff like that, there's a time when you can do it and a time when you shouldn't. You know.
Definitely. Yeah. In my case, I'm just like, well, you know, I don't feel like I'm a psychic at all. I just feel like I'm open to some stuff and it happens. But yeah, in your situation, you have to be a little more guarded. But
Man, he gets a little nervous about it. He thinks I'm a doubter. Like I don't. I've been around him for like freaking 10, 12 years, somewhere around that area. Like if I'm a doubter, man, why the heck am I still here? You know what I mean? It's like I love the crap out of John, dude.
no, you seem open to a lot of things to me, but I don't know. But, yeah.
Well, he gets upset because I don't open up with him. See, it's like that's the thing. John wants me to be open up and talk a lot of good spiritual stuff, you know, and
good, yeah.
You know, and I just don't do it with him. I guess I should, but I don't. So.
Well, it's however you feel and what you've experienced and how you feel about it too. But yeah, and everybody has a different perspective. And I'm very guarded with my paranormal stories. Like my boyfriend, I don't talk to him a lot about it because I don't think that he believes a lot of it. Or sometimes I think he thinks it's coincidental. Yet he's pretty spiritual. Like when we see cardinals and stuff, he always thinks it's his mother, and he's more on the Christian spirituals than more, I think, paranormal. He doesn't like to dabble in it a lot, although he knows there's some stuff that he can't explain. Right. But I'm guarded because there's a lot of stories I haven't told him. There's a few I've told him, of course, you know, about the accident and things, but you're just more guarded about things like that because people are so mean. There's been a paranormal groups I was on Facebook, and I just got out of them because it's like people just get on there to make fun of people. I'm like, well, why are you even on here to hurt somebody's feelings? You know, if you don't believe it and you think it's a bunch of crap, just go on. But you know that the whole idea is that people can share their experiences and not be judged.
Mm-hmm. No, I'll promise you that I will never be that way towards you or anybody at all. Okay, and just because I don't say a lot of stuff when it comes to that, don't think that I believe or disbelieve. I'm just
no, and I never feel that way with John because he's pretty open with a lot of stuff. So yeah,
he's the guy I go to like whenever somebody wants to have like a spiritual interview, because I think he can do a better job when it comes to the spiritual side. You know, like right here, like if you notice the difference, I'm not getting into the spiritual stuff. I'm asking you like direct questions and stuff, and that's where I'm good at, you know. Whereas he can sit and he can talk to you about spiritual stuff and relate to you on those levels, which I think is good. I think that's really good.
Yeah, and I mean, and also, like, well, when my son, you know, you don't want to go too much into it, but my son was like, I didn't talk too much about religion or anything. I was like, no, but you know, you kind of worry about talking about that because he's like, I know a lot of people don't like to go there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you just need to talk about your experiences and how you.
He's pretty fine with me on talking about it. Like, if he wants to talk about it, bring it up. I've got another guy that I'm hoping I can get on for an interview, and he said that he's seen the devil since he was 4 years old. Like, literally had seen Satan all that time, you know. And
I believe some of that stuff, yeah.
You know, so I mean, with me and the guy I'm talking about, he's very religious, and I have no disrespect towards him when it comes to religion at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know,
the funny part about my son is he wasn't raised. I never took him to. We never went to church, not organized religion. Not that I don't believe, but I'm like, I just am not into organized religion. And like I said, with that archangel thing,
I don't even know where that came from. So, but my son's very spiritual now with a very, and he knows a lot about it. And I don't even know how, because I'm like, you never set foot in an organized, he's went to church a couple times with friends, maybe. But that's about it. So that's interesting too. But
now, I was wanting to talk about the top hat guy, but if you don't mind, maybe we can hold it off later and maybe do an interview with you and your son at some time if he wants to do it, and we can talk about the top hat guy.
Okay, yeah, either way, whatever you want to do, it's up to you.
Because I do believe that's an interesting story too, but we're at an hour and a half. Yeah. I'm sure you got stuff to do.
Yeah, it's getting time. Back to I know I did discuss this, and I know it's not a question you're asking, but I did tell John I feel like there's kind of something around me sometimes that maybe protects me. I don't know if they're guardian angels. A lot of people say you have them, but obviously some people don't because terrible things happen. But
if you want, I can give you my feedback now, my observations on what I'm seeing.
Okay.
And it's up to you. I don't, and I could be wrong on it, which I'm pretty sure there's a good chance there's a lot of it that I am wrong about, but it's just what I'm seeing. Okay.
Okay.
Now, first of all, I believe that there is something more that's going on other than just seeing ghosts and stuff like that.
I've actually seen a ghost. The only thing I've ever seen is the top hat man. Oh, sorry, go on.
But the reason why I say that is I could be wrong here. This is the big part that I'm wrong. I feel that there's a part of you that knows what's happening, but at the same time there's a part of you that's saying what's going on here. You know what I mean? You understand that there is something going on, but you really don't know the full explanation for why it's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the one thing I do see. Another thing that I see is there's something that was going on with your mother, because she had seen that spirit. Then it went on to you and your sisters.
Yeah.
And eventually your daughter started having dreams and your son got into spiritualism. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a connection there, and it's not just with you, it's generations. Okay?
Okay.
That's one thing to look at. Now, with you, I believe, or with all of you, I believe that you guys have a certain gift that's been handed to you, and you're, it's a raw ability. You know what I'm saying? It hasn't been disciplined, and you haven't been able to actually, bring it under control to where you could actually, understand how to hold it at bay, or use, put it in check when it needs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you were talking with him about poltergeist activities, there is a chance that it could have been poltergeist activities because you're a female, and
yeah.
I don't know how much you know about poltergeist, but
I don't, and I do believe my son's wife has it, and she even thinks so too. She's got some weird things around her. Yeah.
Now, poltergeist activity usually occurs with young girls, especially because as far as I'm going to go is they have different moods and things like that with concerns to being female than what boys do, and that's as far as I'm going to take that. But,
okay.
But that is what attracts most poltergeists to young girls, and that's what's basically been, said about it. And so right there is a chance that's a good chance that poltergeist is involved in there. But like I said, I'm starting to believe that maybe you guys have something going on that's a gift, where you see things that ordinary people who don't have that gift don't see it.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to maybe my guardedness with co-workers or friends. There's only certain people that I share things with, because they look at me like, well, that's never happened to me. I thought it was always something that kind of happened to people on and off, and that they would understand, but I know they don't. So I'm more like talking to you or John, and I'm not, like I said, always my son and my daughter. Even she kind of looks at us like, oh, I think she denies it a lot, because she's the one that has the most she has more abilities than both of us. But
it's like with your feelings and your thoughts. Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about intuition. That's important for you. Okay. Because you're talking feelings. You're talking thoughts. You're not talking auras, and which you did mention it. Don't get me wrong, but you're not talking it. You know what I mean? It's and in the conversation, the reason why I say it could be because of these abilities or this gift is because, like, when John asked you if you think it's premonition, both of you actually kind of said, well, I don't really know for sure if it's real or not. You know what I mean?
yeah.
If it was a premonition and it wasn't something that was from you, then you would naturally say, well, it has to be something outside of me. You know what I mean? So yeah, it would make sense that it's a poltergeist, but you didn't. You know what I mean?
Right. And my husband, this is weird. I just remembered this. His aunt, his aunt, she told Marty, was telling her, my husband, who's deceased, he was telling her some stuff that had happened out at the old house. Mm-hmm. And she told him, she said, and with our daughter in one of her dreams, she said, oh, so Chantel's like my aunt was. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what? And she was like, yeah, she knew when things were going to happen, and she was like that too. So I think it's on both sides of our family.
Could be. Could be.
And, but yeah.
So I mean, for me, it could be poltergeist. Don't get me wrong, but it could also be something that's with you. Like it's connected to you. You know what I mean? And it's probably a gift or a curse, whichever way you want to make it. And
I think in many ways it's a gift. But the problem is with some things that, like premonitions or dreams, you don't know what's going to happen until it happens. Like, you don't know how to channel it and say, oh, this dream was something I definitely need to pay attention to. And things like that, because like you said, it's kind of
another thing. Like in this interview, the new stuff that crossed my mind is, like, you mentioned the water well. Okay. And then we started talking, and we started finding out more things that involve nature. You know what I mean? Involve the land, the garage, then the water wells, stuff like that. So you've got something going on there that consists of nature.
Definitely, I think where our old house was, like, I think you heard me talk in one of the interviews about the Indian artifacts and stuff. There's something with that land, and there's a lot of stuff going on there. And there is one other little thing I can tell you. When I was talking about how I always felt like something's watching over me, silly things like this happened to me. We had a dog, and I mean, she was a rescue, so she was pretty aggressive. I had to watch her. Sometimes she'd try to, bite the garbage men, and I mean, she could be aggressive. She was a boxer pit mix. And we had a neighbor guy, and he was kind of cocky, this younger guy, and he was out doing something in his yard one day. And I'm telling you, if something happened, you know those kind of people, you're going to have a lot of issues. So my dog bit him. There would be a lot of issues. Just trust me. So anyway, she gets out the door, and I mean, she is flying out there towards him. And like, she has to go across the road. She has to go down our yard, which wasn't maybe a half acre. She's going to go down our yard, go across the road, and get over into his yard. And she's flying, and I'm like, oh Jesus, because she'd never bit anybody, but I knew if she did bite him, it could be bad. And didn't like him anyway. So she's flying out the door, and it had snowed, and so we had quite a bit of snow. And there's a ditch, but our yard, a ditch, and the road. So I'm running at her, and I'm not making any leeway. She's flying, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna bite him. And so she starts to jump over to, like, going to the road, and she fell. This is literally what happened. She fell into a snowdrift that was about, in that ditch, and it covered her up, and it made it so I could get to her in time. And he's standing there, like, my neighbor's standing there looking like, she better not come over here. Like, oh my God. And I was like, I got her and got her back to the house. And I was telling my husband, I said, I can absolutely not believe that just happened. I said, because she was going to bite him, and she was going to hurt him. And I said, we would have had all kinds of issues with her, and him, because he's kind of like that. And he's like, yeah, he said, I've never seen anything like that. And she just went down in that drift, and she was coming, and she couldn't go. And I got her, and I was like, that had to be a divine intervention. But stuff like that doesn't happen to me every now and then, Roger.
That's the way these things happen. It's every once in a while sometimes. I mean, like what was the name of that one where the girl she had the antique shop. I forgot the name.
Oh,
of
yeah.
It doesn't happen like that, you know what I mean? What Ghost Whisperer, I think, is what it was.
Yeah.
That's not how all this stuff works, you know what I mean? Like, the things that are happening, I believe, are things that are being presented to you that you're trying to comprehend, and fully comprehend. You have an idea of what's going on, but like, first of all, the guy Depew and the stuff that happened in the college, I don't think that's directly related to you. I just think that something happened that's your family has somehow stumbled onto, and that's something to maybe kind of look into.
Okay.
I wouldn't walk away from that too much, because that sounds like not only you but your mom kind of saw something there. There's just too many incidents that you've said in this interview that's kind of like that, you know what I mean? And the way that you presented yourself so far tells me that you're being, authentic, because of the fact that, like, there's still questions that you've got, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And that right there, that verifies to me that you're authentic about what you're saying, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's a big deal,
right.
So
I also, before we wrap it up, and this is probably a topic for another time, but back to the maybe something looking out for me occasionally when I need help, and especially we have synchronicities with numbers. 1111. Actually, there's a story I'll tell you another time about my husband and him passing away in that number. But yesterday we had to put our dog down, and so my son went with me, and we always have 1111 pop up or something, and I kind of wanted my dog. I know it's silly, but I told him to let me know that he was okay. So anyway, they we ended up going up there to the vet about 2:00, and they hooked him all up and gave him his medicine. And then I was talking to my son, and he said, "Yeah, I just texted my wife." And I was like, I got to looking at my phone, and I said, "What time was that?" And he said, "I told her when they put the needle in." I said, "What time was it when you texted her?" He said 2:11. And he's like, "Oh my God, 2:11."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, maybe that's our sign."
Could be.
We have a lot. I don't know if you've ever talked to people about numbers, and not just numbers. It's synchronicity, songs and stuff like that.
I just had a interview or round table with a group that's into Plato in the forums, and there's a guy in history. I don't know if you know of him. His name's Pythagoras.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit, not a lot. Yeah.
No, Pythagoras. It's been said that he was reborn over and over again through time, and he actually was able to do it. And he had a math equation that consisted of numbers, and that's what a lot of people come into, like if there's numbers that represent marriage and things like that, you know what I mean? So
yeah. This is weird, but like I said, these are stories I haven't even told John, because I was going to hit upon it in another interview.
Mm-hmm.
About around my husband's death. We found out, he got sick pretty quick, and he died within a month. He had cancer. So they were going in and out trying to figure out what was wrong with him, and maybe trying to do chemo, but he was getting worse and worse. So anyway, he got put into ICU on our anniversary, which was weird. I mean, yeah, they put him in ICU. He was struggling. I went home, and they called me, and they said, "Oh, he's not breathing, so we're going to put him in ICU." So I go down there. Not only is it our anniversary, we got married on my birthday. So I'm down there, which that's kind of weird, but, it happens. So then his respiratory therapist came in that morning,
mm-hmm.
and he looked at me, and he said, "I'm glad you're here," because... And he wasn't real kind. His bedside manner, I think he was kind of shocked. But he was like, and my husband's sitting there. He's like, because chemo's off the table, and I've never seen x-rays like this. And he showed us the x-rays. So basically, his lungs are full of nasty, cancers and stuff. So we find out on our anniversary and my birthday that my husband's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the likelihood of that? I always thought that was so strange. Yeah, my husband's like, "Oh my God."
Yeah. No.
So even happen, stuff like that. You look at that.
I do get into the numerologies and stuff, but I haven't really talked.
Another thing, I think. Yeah. So
I think we should come back sometime, and we can talk about that when we talk about the guy with the top hat.
Okay, that's good.
That'd be good.
Yeah. So if you got any other questions or anything, I'm pretty much ready. I guess we should wrap it up, huh?
Yeah. This was an excellent interview. That's the one thing I do have to say. Before we go, though, do you have any plugs that you want to put out there? Let people contact you. If it doesn't matter if you don't. I just figured I'd ask you if you.
No, I mean they can get me through Discord, can't they? Can they?
Yeah, they can get you through here on Wonderful World of Weirdness.
Yeah, and what's it under, like summer? Yeah.
You're just in the members. All they got to do is come in. And they can tag you, and it'll give you a message that somebody wants to talk to you. So
Yeah, so that'll work. Anybody who wants to discuss anything, And like I said, there's probably people out there that think I'm crazy, but
well, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? You at least you have the courage to stand up and tell your story. And
yeah, I'm never usually worried too much about what people think. I've always kind of followed my own
exactly.
thing. So, yeah, it's been a great interview, and it's nice when I talk to you and John. How many things I remember that I've forgotten too.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff things. So that's always a good thing. So
well,
yeah,
it was just as good for me having the conversation too, because I really did enjoy this, and you're always welcome to come back and talk, and tell your son he's welcome to. Heck, if your daughter even wants to come on, any of you guys, and just talk about it. You're more
I know you. I think you reached out to Austin, and he's going to be off for quite a few days after this week. So I think he's wanting to get together with you to interview. I told him, I said, well, then definitely contact him, and he can talk to you on his own. And yeah, he's pretty
before
interesting.
we get off, though, I mean, kind of give me some feedback. Am I okay with the way I gave it that review on your story and everything? Was that?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And it's so funny that I guess kind of like when you're in the middle of something, or it just life, that you don't put things together. But it's funny how you said John put that together with my family. I really wasn't putting it together. I kind of thought, my kids might be a little bit that way because I am. But I never thought about my mom, my mother. And then I forgot about Marty's, my deceased husband's aunt. So there's definitely some stuff in the family, I believe.
Just some stuff to look at, and like I said, I could be wrong. I usually am most of the time. But
I don't think so. It's clear. It's it's brought some clarity to that. I just never thought about that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely. I love the feedback. That's good. And John told me that he thought I was a healer, but I don't know about that one. So.
Yeah.
Because everybody, I seriously to God, everybody around me this year has been sick, and even my dog and my daughter had a premature baby. I mean, it's like everybody around me's having health issues. So, and no matter if I try to heal them, doesn't seem like it's helping. So, yeah, that's for another topic too. But
just try to keep an open mind, and you'll be okay, and you'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Stay close to people that are like-minded and have experienced these things too, because they can help you as well.
Yeah, I think you guys are helping me a lot. But like I said, it's kind of weird since I talked. Actually, that's weird too. It's kind of been since I talked to John that I'm having, like I said, I'll mention something and it'll happen. And
yeah.
What do they call that? Is that synchronicities?
It's premonitions.
I guess.
You're having.
But it's been so terribly strong. I'm like, is something shifted? Something shifted.
You're becoming aware. You had senses that something, someone was watching you. Something wasn't right. People were going to die, and you'll get more familiar with it and start recognizing it.
Well, see, now I always felt like, but we, go back to that. I thought that was more like the guardian angels, watching me.
Yeah, I know.
A little, but maybe it's a little bit of both.
It could be. I mean, there's no end-all answer to everything. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, I think we all do silly things, or we do things that we shouldn't have. Like, I shouldn't have pulled out in front of a truck, or when you were younger, you probably shouldn't have went down there to swim. But I think there's times that I call them light workers. They have to come and help us if we have more work to do on this earth. If we don't, then of course we leave. Mm-hmm. So I feel like sometimes we have to have a little help.
Yep.
So, okay. Well, it's been great talking to you, Roger. Yeah, and I like the format that you have. I think it's real good.
I appreciate that. And
the feedback.
Hey, I'm glad that you didn't get mad at me. That's
No, why would I get
I'm just that's the best way to answer that. I'm just glad you didn't get mad at me.
I didn't think. I don't know. I wasn't offended in any way. So
Good.
Yeah.
That means I did good.
yes, it was. It's wonderful. Yeah,
Okay.
and it brought to light some things for me to think about and put together. Okay, well, it's been nice, and I will get off of here, and
Okay.
you have a good day.
You
So
too.
where'd you? Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois. Yep. That's me.
Okay. Were you born there?
I was born in Wisconsin. Me and my little sister and my older brother and my older sister were born here.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we're kind of stuck. Yeah. Once the family starts having babies in that region, they seem to stay there for hundreds of years.
Yeah, that's kind of when in Ohio here. So.
So I'll go ahead and end this, and I'd like to say thank you again, and I hope you have a good day. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. I enjoyed this. Bye.
You too.